In times of crisis, many Americans will find themselves needing to shelter in place. While the idea of retreating to a remote cabin in the woods sounds appealing, it's simply not feasible for most. That's why mastering the art of bugging in is crucial for your survival. Today, we're diving into the essentials of bugging in, from food storage and management to securing your water supply and assembling effective get-home bags. We're Armored Republic, the #1 supplier of body armor to civilians in the world, and it's our mission to equip free men and women like you. Let's get into the video. When disaster strikes and you're not home, the first step is getting home. That's where we'll start.
In order for me to bug in, I first need to get home. Right now, I'm in the red zone. I'm in a highly populated area, and I need to get home on foot. So I keep a lot of stuff in my Jeep, and I also keep extra stuff in my bag. This bag right now would be enough supplies for me to get home from where I'm currently at. Starting on the top, I actually keep wool socks. When it's 115 degrees outside and I'm sweating like crazy, I'm gonna want a spare change of socks, especially from walking home. So wool socks are a good choice. I keep a power bank and a spare charger for my phone. And I keep a mod light. So this is a great handheld light. It's usually on my body, but when it's daytime like this, I keep it in my bag. Up next, I keep a filter for a hydration bag that we'll get to in a minute. Extra electrolytes. Extra goo. So what this is basically just calories and caffeine. This is something to keep me going where I don't have to stop to eat and there's not a lot of food preparation. And chapstick. Because it's so hot, your lips actually get more than just chapped, they get sunburned and it can be quite a big inconvenience. So something small. The last pocket on this Armored Republic Firebird is gonna be a pocket trauma kit by LTC. This is a Hydra Pack 3-liter bag. So what I love about this is it's obviously very small and compact, but will hold 3 liters of water. Multi-tool and a Benchmade utility knife. These are required. I keep an extra cat tourniquet, a lighter, ear protection, and some land navigation stuff that I keep in a dry bag. So I have a protractor here, a compass, a Write in the Rain notebook and pen and ranger beads. So as I'm walking through the city, if I don't have GPS or my phone, this will be a way for me to keep track of where I'm going. So first up is the new Mark 1 micro rig that we have. And so remember, your mission is gonna dictate your gear. My mission for getting home is to be swift and to be lightweight. That's why I chose this setup. It carries just the essentials. I have extra ammunition, I have trauma kit and medical, that's it. No fat on it whatsoever. And so for me, I don't want to be carrying a lot of weight. This is gonna fit my mission perfectly. I also keep a backup set of S2 armor in here. So this is our level 3A concealment carrier, extra lightweight. And so if I did feel the need, I want added protection, this will give me the ability to conceal it and stay lightweight. So what we're trying to communicate to you is give a thoughtful approach to how you're gonna load your stuff out. Mission is gonna dictate your gear. So this is how I've dictated my gear. Let's get after it. All right, guys, so we made it home and we're gonna start with the most practical aspect of prepping and bugging in, and that is food. So I've laid out a few options that I personally own to give you an example of some variety. So a lot of people will immediately gravitate towards this freeze-dried food. 25-year shelf life, it's actually a really good solution. The problem is if this is all you have, 2 things are gonna happen. 1, this takes a lot of water to use. So when we get to talking about drinking water, you're gonna have your drinking water and then water to cook as well. So this is gonna take a lot of your water supply. The other problem is it's not very nutrient dense. And so something that we like to have at my household is we have a bunch of this, but we also have canned foods as well, specifically canned protein. So in front of me is Spam, good old fashioned Spam, chicken, tuna, and sardines. So I actually do not like sardines at all, but what I do realize is this is a cheap, affordable, long-lasting protein source that you can keep in your storage. And so mixing things up gives you a little bit of diversity, it changes the flavor up, and will give you a little bit more protein that's gonna help you survive. A couple other options that I recommend. We're gonna have some rice, and so this is from Costco. Most of this is from Costco actually, so the good thing about that is right now it's readily available. It's relatively affordable, and it's going to give you bulk options. Oatmeal, solid choice. I think this was only like $7 right now. So if you're watching this video, it's July of 2024. So pretty affordable there. And pasta. You may notice though that these options, although are very affordable, are gonna actually have the same problem with this, is that it takes a lot of water to use. So it gives you a large quantity. Just keep in mind that food most of the time needs water to prepare. The canned food, on the other hand, is ready to eat out of the can. Some other options to consider are honey and salts, pepper, sugar, other things like that you can either vacuum seal or you can just keep the seal on them. Will give you the opportunity to season your food, give it some sweetness, give it some saltiness, and make the food that you're eating in an emergency taste a little bit better. On the other side, you could also trade salt if you have neighbors and things like that. One more honorable mention is going to be supplements. So we talked a little bit about that. This emergency food is going to be limited in the amount of nutrition you're actually going to get from it. So having some supplements that you can mix in to help keep you from being malnourished is going to be a big deal. One more thing actually is going to be a vacuum sealer. So again, right now, relatively affordable. I think that was around $20 at Target. And you can buy some of these foods in smaller quantities and vacuum seal them yourself at home. And then that way it's something you can do on your own as you're shopping. The buy two, use one method is something we use here at my household. And what I mean by that is if I'm buying one of these, instead of buying one, I'm gonna buy two, because canned chicken, for example, is something that we might consume on a regular basis. So if I'm buying two every week for normal cooking and food prep, I'm actually only consuming one, and I'm saving one for emergency prep, and I'm cycling that out. Remember, canned food typically has a 3 to 5 year shelf life, depending on what you're getting. This stuff is a lot longer, but when we're talking about the canned food, I don't want to buy a bunch and then wait 5 years and all of it's bad, and now I have to resupply all over again. So it's this constant cycle of bringing in food, using some, storing some, and then when it's time to buy again, I use my stored food and then resupply that. And it's this cycle of purchasing and consuming foods. And so you can do that with pasta, you can do that with your seasonings and sugars and things like that as well. When we're talking about, again, how to accumulate all of this stuff, work it into your monthly budget. So let's say you set aside $150 a week for groceries, maybe make that $160, and you're only buying one extra thing per week. And again, with this cycle of inventory, this will build up relatively quickly. And we want to make sure that you're making wise financial decisions and not dropping too much money at one time. If you have the means and you have the time, then go ahead and go crazy, buy everything all at once. But most of us can't do that. Most of us like to budget things wisely. And so again, this is stuff that you can all do, incorporating it into your normal budget so that you're buying a little bit at a time. For me personally, my supply took a couple years to actually build up to a healthy bit. There are some times where I splurge and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna buy extra. Good. If you can do it, do it. But realistically, one more time, incorporate it into your budget and just add a little bit at a time with foods that you normally consume. You might be asking yourself, how much is too much or how much do I need? And so it's actually just a math game. It's a math problem that you have to solve. So the average person needs about 2,000 calories per day. So when we're looking at all of this, you're gonna have to spend an afternoon or so. I recommend either a handwritten spreadsheet. Ideally, if you have something that's handwritten and something on Excel or something like that, that would be ideal. So you have two options to fall back on. But you're going to have to figure out how many calories your household is going to need. So start with 2,000 as a base number. And for me and my household, let's say it's 8,000 calories that I need to provide for my family per day. So if I want 2 weeks worth of food, well, I'm gonna take that 8,000 number and times it by 14 days. So a good place to start is having enough food and water on hand for 14 days. So you don't have to leave your house for 14 days. A next step from there would be 3 months, and then maybe 6 months, and you can keep going as much as you want. I recommend the bare minimum is 2 weeks. Once you have that, a lot of you already do. If you go through your cupboard right now and find out how much food you're actually not eating, I bet you in an emergency, you could probably consume it and it might meet your calorie needs. So again, something to keep in mind is gonna be how much you're burning. And so for the men specifically, if things are so bad that you're bugging in, you might be in a heightened state of awareness. You might be going outside and doing some house chores, maybe trading, maybe going out and looking for more supplies. You might be burning more calories. So having a little bit extra is never a bad idea. If you have to ration, you can ration down, but if you have a little bit extra, that's going to be a lot better for you. So now that you are figuring out how much you actually need, I recommend some form of organization. These are what I chose because I'm a Costco shopper, and so this is something that's readily available. Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, Walmart, wherever you want to go. You don't even have to use these. Find a organization and storage solution that works best for you, and then keep it. So what I like to do is I have one of these for vacuum sealed food. I have one of these for canned food. I have one of these for tools and cooking supplies and things like that. And so that's how I keep mine organized. And then in a spreadsheet, I know tub A with canned food has this much protein, this much canned vegetables, and this many calories total. For, tub B, it's going to be, these are all of my seasonings. So I have this many pounds of sugar, this many pounds of flour, this many pounds of salt, and things like that. And so find an organization method that works for you and stick to it. Remember that this should actually be fun, and it's not necessarily something you're going to do in one whole weekend. You kind of build up to it. So as you're thinking about how much food you need, start also thinking about where you're going to keep it and how you're going to keep it. We talked about food storage and organization, and we want to remind you guys that this shouldn't be your whole life. Your life shouldn't revolve around prepping and having all of these different things. Incorporate it into your life and make it a part of your life, but don't let it dominate you. So I live in an apartment. I am limited on space, so that's why these work for me. I can fill up a couple of these, keep it in the closet, and it's not taking up too much room. It's clean, it's organized, and I have everything documented. So when I go to resupply or when I go to use something, it's all right there and it's easy to understand. We are talking about prepping, and we don't want you guys to be flustered with all of this stuff. In fact, it's the opposite. We want you to be prepared and calm and know exactly what you have and incorporate it into part of your lifestyle. There's no ideal setup. So work with the room you have, work with the constraints you have. Remember, you can put stuff under your bed, you can put stuff in a closet, you can stack stuff on top of your normal pantry or behind your normal pantry. Find an organization, that method that works for you, and don't be feared or frustrated by your constraints. It's ideal to have food that you're already enjoying and consuming. I'm personally not going to go out and buy artichoke hearts because that's not part of my normal diet. It's not something I enjoy. And if things are so bad that I'm resorting to all my canned food, at the very least, I want to be able to enjoy it, right? It's such a bad situation. At the very least, I'm happy with my food. So just because something's on sale and just because it's canned food, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best buy for you. Again, you do you, but what we're trying to help you do is build a healthy and comfortable supply of food that you'll actually enjoy if you go to use it. Water is arguably the most important part of bugging in. If we're talking about you are not going to leave your home or you're leaving your home in a very limited area, water will be the difference between life and death. We talked a little bit in food how some of your water allocations are going to go to food prep. So right now we're going to talk about just drinking water primarily. So here are some practical things you can start doing and buying today to help make it so that you have a healthy water supply. Before we actually get started, I do want to remind you of the math problem, right? So the average adult needs about a gallon of water per day. A child is about a half gallon. So for your household, you need to find out how many gallons you need per day and then just multiply that by how many days you're preparing for. I think 3 days is a minimum. 2 weeks is a good place to start. 3 months is pretty solid. Very, very few Americans do that. And if you can get to 6 months or a year, then you're a pro. Water has a particular problem that it just takes up so much room and it's so heavy. So here are a few things that we'll go over. First off, bottled water. The current price at Costco for a case of about 5 gallons of water is around $4, $5, depending on your state. Used to be $3, thanks Biden, but it's still affordable. Something that is also very easy to do is a way to filter your drinking water. So this is a Brita with Brita filters. You can find this at any grocery store, Target, Walmart, things like that. And I believe Costco actually has these in large quantities as well for the filters. The difference between this is water that you're going to be filtering from either a pool or from your faucet. And so different solution here. I personally like to buy reverse osmosis drinking water, and so I have quite a bit of these 5-gallon jugs. Unfortunately, BPA-free jugs are a little bit expensive. I've seen them as high as $55 each. I've seen them as low as around $30. So you're gonna have to do some research. Oftentimes they're on sale from Brio, so I would check that out. But 5 gallons is, one person's supply for a little less than a week. And to give you some contrast, this is 5 gallons as well. I think this is actually a little bit more. So if this is a easier way to do it, then good for you. This is another way I recommend as well. And when we're talking about some smaller items you can do, so going back to filtration, life straws, I think you can get 2 packs on Amazon for pretty affordable. You can also buy emergency purified drinking water. So these are small little bags of purified drinking water. And I actually like these for medical purposes. So we talked about having water for food, water for drinking, and this is good for cleaning wounds. And these are very inexpensive. You can get a large box of like 500 for like 20 bucks. So you're gonna pay more in shipping because of the weight rather than what these actually cost. And the shelf life on this is like 5 years. So I recommend this. And pro tip, it's probably not gonna actually go bad. It's just they have to put a shelf life on it. Some other practical things you can do for water purification are going to be these aqua droplets. And so this is a system where you're going to put a couple droplets into a certain amount of volume of water. So just follow the instructions. Depending on how much water you're trying to purify will determine how many droplets you put in there. Aqua tabs, again, another affordable option. You can get these at REI, Amazon. These are readily available as well. Katadyn makes excellent water filters. And so what I like to do is have these water filters with a water storage solution. So this is from HydroPack. This is a 3-liter water bag, comes with a little pack. What I love about this is you can attach a filter from Katadyn onto it. They also have their own filters. And when you're not using it, you can just fold it up and put it in a bag. And this is good for traveling, for hiking, for keeping it in your car or a go bag. And then it's a way to filter water. And so one more thing I do want to talk about is if you have the means, you can get one of these bad boys. This is a BPA-free 55-gallon drum. And so if you're like me in an apartment, this is something I can keep on my balcony. 55 gallons right there. 2 things to consider. 1 is, do you have the space on your balcony? And 2 is weight. So if you're living on the 3rd floor, 4th floor, I would just make sure that your apartment is structurally sound to hold it. When you fill this up, it's about 480 pounds, give or take, if my math is right. So it should be fine. It's like 2 Americans standing close to each other. I'm pretty sure you're gonna be okay, but make sure that you look into that yourself. If you do go this route, you're going to want a way to siphon the water out of it. You're going to want a way to open it and seal it, and some extra water purification droplets. This whole system I got from SOS Survival Products. They're located in Van Nuys, California. They usually have all of this stuff in stock, so I recommend you check them out. And one other thing that's pretty practical, if you have a house or if you're looking for a way to fill up some of these water storage solutions, is going to be a lead-free drinking hose. So I think this is 15 feet. They come in all different sizes, but having a way to fill up your water is going to be critical as well. Water is going to run out. You have to face the fact. So a couple things I can do is I know where my pool is. It's right downstairs. I know where there's a canal, but that's pretty far away. I do not want to be walking back and forth carrying water. So as much water that I try to have on hand, I have to understand that it is limited and it is going to run out. At some point, I'm going to have to leave the house to get more water. So these are all really good tools. They'll all help you quite a bit, but making sure that you know where local fresh water sources are, how far are they, can you even get to it, is it even reasonable? And understanding that this is probably going to be your biggest asset. Make sure that you're also rationing water in a responsible way. Do not ration in the sense that I'm not going to drink my allocated water for the day. Make sure you're staying hydrated drinking. But maybe I don't need to necessarily wash out my coffee pot and waste water. Maybe I don't need to wash my cooking knife when I can use friction and a paper towel or something. So being wise with your water consumption and making sure that it's going to the most important uses, namely hydration and medical. All right, so up next, we're going to talk about medical. First rule of thumb is you should have enough supplies for your whole family. We really like fully built out medical kits that you can buy that come in a bag that are fully loaded. My only gripe with them is they typically only have enough supplies to wrap a wound once, to treat one person. It's not really a sustainment pack. So an easy way to start is by getting a bunch of gauze. So these are 4x4 gauze wraps, and these are 3 inch by 4 yards. What I really love about these two options is, so this is the roll, this is the gauze, is that these are very cheap. This is around $4.50. This box is around $5 or less. And you can get them on auto shipment from Amazon. And it's something that you can just have shipped to your door every single month. And you can adjust the frequency however you want. But I now have 2 big containers full of this stuff that I accumulated only over a couple of months. And now I can turn off the subscription and I am set for quite a long time. Something else you want to consider is ways to clean wounds. So having stuff like rubbing alcohol on hand, something to clean hands. And whether you like hand sanitizer or not, the point is we're trying to ration water, like we previously mentioned. And so if you can have water for drinking and for cooking, and the rest of the water that you have, you're going to want to ration to make sure that you're not just blowing through it, because as we mentioned earlier, it's probably your most important asset. Another mention is having the purified drinking water that you can use for cleaning wounds. That way you separate water for medical, water for cooking, and for drinking. A couple other things we want to talk about are some simple items that you can have. So something to wrap the wounds once you've already covered them in gauze, regular small bandages, things like that, alcohol wipes, more gauze, mini splints. I think the items that I have in this box here were actually from the 99-cent store. So the good news is most of this stuff doesn't expire. So you got to get creative and don't necessarily think of this as one big purchase that you have to do by getting a giant medical kit. I recommend that you go through and buy a little bit at a time, as we mentioned earlier. We're going to also talk about hygiene. And so one of the ways you can prevent infection and prevent some medical things is keeping good hygiene. So we have baby wipes. These could be used for cleaning your body so you don't have to take baths. They're also good for children. We recommend if you do have nursing babies or babies who are not potty trained, having reusable diapers. The reason why I pick reusable diapers is although you do have to clean them, it's going to be really hard to stock up on diapers because babies are constantly growing. If you stock up on newborn diapers or size 1, size 2, and so on, chances are your baby's going to grow out of that by the time you have a chance to use it. So be smart, think about that. For medication, there's one that I recommend a little bit more than others, and that's ibuprofen. So this is a little bit cheaper version, but I mean, you can get ibuprofen at any grocery store, Target, Walmart, Costco, the big ones. But this is a good fever reducer and pain reliever. You can also get Tylenol and acetaminophen and like all those other ones. Those are good choices too. But making sure that you have some ibuprofen. If it's something that you use on a regular basis, you guessed it, cycle it in with your normal purchasing and use the old first and continue to just cycle in stuff. That way you can build a healthy supply of emergency stuff on things that you're currently using. If you are taking any medications, so we recommend having a few different bottles on hand. I'm not on all these medications, by the way, but if I have extra antibiotics that I no longer need, keep them in a cool, safe environment and try to prolong the shelf life. If there are other medications that maybe you no longer need or a family member no longer needs, don't throw them away. You never know when you might need them, or you could trade them later on in a really bad scenario. Another thing that is really good for preventative health is electrolytes. So this is liquid IVs. Again, you can get it at any of the major stores. There's also other brands that are probably a little bit better, but making sure that you're staying hydrated, maximizing your water is going to go a long way. A couple honorable mentions that aren't listed right here are going to be dental hygiene. So making sure that you have extra toothpaste on hand, extra toothbrushes, floss. If you have a cavity and it goes untreated long enough, that can cause some serious health complications. So making sure that you're taking the time to buy these extra things as you're currently shopping will go a very long way. Having some baking soda on hand so you can find recipes to make your own toothpaste or soap is going to go a long way. Before we get into some medical kits right here, a very important thing is going to be a toilet. So if plumbing is not working, we're assuming water is not flowing to your apartment or your home, you're gonna need a way to go to the bathroom in a sanitary way. So something like this, that's basically a toilet seat on a bucket, is very, very cheap. And with just some biohazard bags and kitty litter for sanitation and for smell, is gonna help you quite a bit. So right here, we have an awesome flat back from Haley Strategic. This is excellent for a lot of different uses, but this use right here is gonna be for medical patch to identify it. This is something you can keep in your car, keep in your house, but it's gonna be really beneficial. So the way this one is set up is actually with a hard case in it. What the hard case does is prevent it from getting smashed or damaged. If you keep it in your car, then it's gonna prevent it from being damaged in a car accident, and it just keeps its form a lot better. So some of the goodies inside of this are gonna be, you guessed it, more gauze, things to wrap wounds, compression bandages, more different types of medications, tourniquets, hand sanitizer. And so you can never have too much of this stuff. For medical, I think redundancy is key. I don't have one centralized place for medical. A lot of this stuff lives in the closet. I also have a car pack. I have stuff in my backpack. I have stuff on my armor and my kits, and it's broken up all over my apartment so that it's readily available and I'm not constrained to one area. The problem with having everything isolated in one area is if that area gets compromised for whatever reason, maybe you live in California and there's earthquakes, there's a fire, whatever it is, theft, that's it. All of your supplies, all your hard work is gone. So when we're talking about having medical or any other important items, maybe having a couple different backup locations is gonna help you out too. One of the key things about having a pack like this is I can grab it and go and rush to the emergency. If someone really hurts their ankle or they can't walk or something like that, I don't have to sit through this and kind of go through and find everything I need. I have a bag that's ready to deploy in a moment's notice. One thing we don't see enough in videos like this is talking about the hard skills that you need. Skills like being able to fix cars and having mechanical skills, or just a general knowledge of tools and how to use them. Do you know how to garden? Do you know what seeds to plant and what seasons to plant them in? Do you have something that you can grow on your balcony if you're limited to an apartment? What about making bread from scratch or knowing what foods to eat for medicinal purposes? These are all skills that you can start learning today that will be extremely valuable in the future, even if you don't necessarily have a platform to use them, but in a community, you can trade your skills and labor for resources or other skills and labor that you don't have. So if you don't have the time to do it, we recommend that you download PDFs and instruction manuals onto your phone and to hard drives. And more importantly, if you can get physical copies of stuff too. Ideally, both is the best combination. So something like a simple search and rescue survival manual on what plants to eat, how to make different shelters, how to navigate using the stars at night if you don't have a phone. Something like this is a meat eater book from Steve Rinella. This thing is awesome and will show you how to hunt and make food out of everything you can think of, from big game to turtles and rabbits and everything in between. Something like this is extremely valuable, especially if you're a hunter and things go down. When we're talking about hard skills, don't limit yourself. Try to accumulate as much knowledge and skill now before things get bad. Canning food, learning how to make sourdough bread. If you have a wife who can sew and make clothing, maybe she can also use that skill to learn how to do stitches on somebody if they have a wound that requires it. These are all skills and hard skills that the family should be developing as a whole unit. So alternate fuel sources is something that we need to talk about right now. Ideally, you could have a solar generator or a gas power generator or some sort of dual fuel option. I personally do not. In apartments, there's really not a big need for me to have that. Even if power goes down, most of the major appliances I have no control over. I probably could power my fridge, and that's actually worth considering. So in the future, we'll probably do a more dedicated power video on that. But what we're going to talk about right now is batteries and cooking and some other fuel options. So starting with something really minimal that you should have are power bank options. So this little guy right here can actually power all of my small devices, including a laptop, and it's fast charging, so this is great. This will do the same thing, but better and faster. This will also charge cameras and anything else like that. So really good options. These are rechargeable. So Batteries are another big thing. This is an area that I am personally lacking in, and so please learn from me. I didn't realize until this video that I am constantly consuming batteries. For some reason, I thought I had like 10 packs of each, and this is really all I got. And so, especially when it comes to my CR123s, I use this for my optics, for my weapon lights, for night vision, and I only have like 50 of these, I think less than that. And so this is a good eye-opener that batteries are going to be something that you consume on a regular basis and don't really think about. And this is actually something you could trade in the future. So I don't really use a lot of the AAA actually, but other people do. And so this is something that I want to keep in stock at all times. So for cooking, I recommend having at least 2 different options to cook. So if power's out and you can't use your electric stove, or if you have gas, it's even better. But what this will allow you to do is have a butane option, which is something small like this. This is something you can use indoors and not have to open windows with, and you can burn and cook with that. Butane is going to be a little bit less expensive too, but I also recommend having a propane solution as well. Propane is going to be a great option, and with these little 1-pound containers, they're about $10. You can use something like this, which is a dual burner system from Jetbroil. Pretty solid, and it's really compact. I can boil water, I can cook food with it, and do a couple things simultaneously. So all of these things are part of your power solutions that you should be considering. We talked about food, we talked about water, we talked about medical. All of those things are going to need to be boiled at some point, whether it's water for food, water for sanitation, or water for drinking and purification. You're going to need a way to boil it. I recommend, again, having butane and propane. It's a redundant system, so you have 2 options. And then go through your house. Think about anything you use that consumes power that you don't plug in, and do you have batteries for it? So again, weapon systems. Do you have enough batteries to keep them all running? Normal appliances that take AA, AAA batteries, super common, but again, do you have the batteries to back them up? So I would recommend that you, when you go shopping and you're going to buy some, buy a little bit extra at a time. It's the same system that we use for everything here. And so you're not going out and buying everything, you're incorporating this into your lifestyle. You don't always have to buy the large packs. These are going to be more expensive. But if you go buy an 8-pack, maybe you buy 2 8-packs or something like that. Or maybe this is the more affordable route for you. But make sure that you're stocked up on power. You don't want to be without power. If you've ever been in your home and there's a monsoon, there's just a windstorm, and the power goes out, it'll immediately strike fear in people's hearts when it's like, what do? I can't see. So don't want to feel like that ever again, and you don't want to feel like that in a really bad scenario. If you have power and no one else does, you're going to feel like a king. Lastly, we're going to talk about security. So in an apartment, I don't have a ton of options. I can put motion sensors on my doors and windows. I can have motion sensor security cameras and things like that. But really, vigilance and awareness is going to be my biggest asset. And so my wife and my family, we all practice situational awareness. We always know where our exits are. We always know when things are out of place, and we're always keeping our heads up rather than looking down at our phones all the time. So I definitely recommend that to you. And that goes the same even if you are in a home. So having firearms are also going to be a big factor in your ability to defend yourself. But also be aware of your greater surroundings. So what we recommend to you is knowing your area, knowing your streets, and knowing landmarks, and knowing how to navigate yourself a little bit better than just relying on your phone, especially if you don't have access to your phone. Part of security, especially in an apartment, is also knowing the apartment complex itself. So I know who the staff is. I know who the maintenance guys are. So there's always familiar faces around. I know who my neighbors are. I know where the front gate is. I know where there's alternate exits. I know how to get out through the side gates, everything like that. I know where my vehicles are at all times, especially when I don't get to park in my spot. Then I park in my backup spot. My wife knows where that is. And so understanding your surroundings as a greater whole, not just your own home, is going to be a big player. And then also knowing alternate routes. I know how to walk to the nearest hospital from here. I also know where the nearest police station is and where the nearest fire department is. Those are things that you should know off the top of your head. You're not always going to be able to access your phone. You're not always going to be 911, and they're not always going to be there to get you. You are your own first responder. No one is coming to save you. You need to be able to depend on yourself. So I recommend knowing alternate routes to those places, knowing alternate routes to your closest friend's house or a family member, building a community, knowing landmarks, knowing how to get there is part of security and it's part of your plan for bugging in. So I want to leave you with some final thoughts. Bugging in isn't as bad as it sounds. You know, in an apartment, you're going to have to work with the space that you have. But remember, you have home field advantage. You can organize all of these resources in the way that's best going to serve you and your family, making sure you have a good community, making sure you're in communication with people that have a plan. And if they don't, help them get a plan so that it's mutually beneficial to you guys. So stay tuned. We're going to do some other videos in this same topic. Like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us know in the comments what else you'd like to see. I probably missed some stuff, so please let me know and we'll cover it in another video.